Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Light back with another video. And in today's video, we're going to be doing part number 21 of my ongoing reviewing the MCU series. And today we're going to be doing Avengers Endgame. So, yeah, I just recently watched it. Now here's my review. Just like all my other MCU reviews to date, I will be doing it in the fashion of my initial reaction, followed by the bad, followed by the good, followed by my final closing remarks and rating. So, anyways, my initial reaction, we're in the big stage of the MCU here. We're in the final, basically the final conclusion to the Infinity Saga. I almost said MCU, but as you guys know, the MCU is continuing on to this day, so it's not like this is the end of the MCU. But I mean, it was the end of the Infinity Saga. I definitely think it's a solid conclusion. Uh, I actually enjoy the film. I think it's a good film. Yeah. Anyways, let's continue into like the bad and the good. So first of all, on the bad, I'm gonna be straight up honest with you guys. Unlike Infinity War, this movie completely lacked villain. I mean, yeah, Thanos is a stellar villain. He's really good. But I mean, in this movie, it just lacked him. For how, like most of the movie, he was dead. I say that in quotation marks because he does come out in the end. But I mean, he was dead. I mean, it's just like I remember specifically being in the theater and being like, how are they gonna change this up? How like where's that presence of a villain? And just being like, yeah, where's that presence of the villain? Like, I understand the plot is kind of getting everybody back, but I mean, where's that presence of a villain? Where's that conclusion? Like, you just didn't feel Thanos in the movie. Thanos' presence. You kind of felt like the presence of him snapping his finger and all these people dead, but I mean, you're not like thinking, oh, Thanos is gonna be a big, huge threat to the Avengers here and stuff like that. So I just feel like it just kind of lacked villain wise heavily. I mean, yeah. I mean, I understand what they're going for and stuff like that, but I mean, I wish we felt maybe a deeper threat presence of him or something. Um, yeah, something along those lines, perhaps. So, yeah. And another thing that I had a little bit of a problem with is it's definitely it lacked with certain parts. I mean, this movie kind of felt a little lacking on certain things. Like I'm talking core middle of the movie or core beginning to the middle. It just kind of lacked a little bit. It started off, I thought it started off really pleasantly strong, and then it just started lacking after a while. My apologies about that. My phone just went off. Um, yeah, so it was just like it started lacking, and it just felt like as if it was just like, why is this lacking like this? I mean, it's supposed to be like a really solid, hopefully a really solid movie, and that's how it like fails compared to Infinity War. I still think it's a solid movie and everything, but I mean, it just kind of lacked. I'm talking in particular with certain characters. First of all, Captain Marvel. That was one of the characters where it's just like, what the hell? When it basically just lacked her so much. I mean, she was advertised as being, at least from what I seen, she was advertised as being a big part in this movie, a part of our core Avengers, maybe taking up the mantle and, or not the mantle, but like being one of our core Avengers in the future. Which I mean, she still is, but I mean, this was looking like it. She would have a big role in it. Where now she's just like basically like a side character, like a very minor part. I mean, really, she was a very minor part. She just showed up once in the beginning, then she was just gone and showed up on the screen one time, and then basically came back in the ending battle. So it's just like that was just strange to me. But I mean, I think I understand kind of why they did that. I guess maybe perhaps like Brie Larson was caught filming up Captain Marvel, which is another one of like the big problems with it. Honestly, this isn't part of the review, but I mean, I'd honestly just rather say that I would have rather Captain Marvel's movie come out after Endgame, perhaps. Maybe she show up the first time in Endgame, or at least make Captain Marvel's movie a little bit ahead. So yeah. Anyways, continuing on here. So yeah, and in terms of like lacking as well, I'm myself personally, I don't know if I'm the only one who thought this, but I thought the whole Nat versus Clint thing was kind of not stupid, but I mean, it was just like it kind of felt out of place and it just kind of felt lacking. But I mean, it brought emotion, but I mean, it's still at the same time, it was just kind of felt kind of lacking. So yeah. Um, Another thing I kind of disliked, its treatment of some of the characters was kind of trash. Like really, it gave time for like Tony Stark and Captain America to shine, but really characters like Thor and Hulk were basically cast aside. I mean, it just they were just so random, and I mean, I could understand what was happening with Thor. That was just like kind of like a theme of just failure and someone going into a downward spiral. But I mean, still they kind of just mistreated it to make it a joke a little bit, and I mean, I kind of disliked that a little bit. And then Professor Hulk was kind of stupid in my opinion. I don't really like Professor Hulk at all as a character. I'm hoping that one day in the MCU they make him turn back to the original Hulk, just because I just feel weirded out by Hulk being like this. I don't know. It was so weird seeing that, and honestly I didn't like that. It feels like this movie should have been a send off to its characters, this original core Avengers that we saw like 10 years ago at this time. It should have been like something like that, but then they're just like now they're just introducing kind of new layers to the story and new characters. Really, this was a good send off. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. In terms of the original six Avengers, it was a really good send off for characters such as Captain America, Iron Man, for sure. Maybe not really. Black Widow was eh. Hawkeye was he was getting his own show, so it's not a big deal with that. It was a decent send off for him. And then Thor and Hulk, it wasn't even a good send off. But I mean, they're still around. But I mean, still like this was meant to be like their last outing. Wish it could have been a little bit more, potentially a little bit more. So yeah. But I mean that's pretty much it though. With in terms of the bad and good. Well, another thing that I kind of felt a little. This is not a huge bad, but I mean, another thing is it just got way too many characters. It's very hard to. And I wish honestly, with my own self, I wish it the final battle didn't take place at Avengers compound. It does make sense, but I would have rather maybe take it place off planet or something, just because there's so many layers to the story, especially with all these different characters. Like first of all, Star Lord was there, and Star Lord had never came to Earth since his mother died, and that's something they could have dealt with. But of course, there's too much characters; they can't really do too much. So that was another thing that was just kind of like, kind of weirding me out and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyways, continuing on with that. So yeah, now we're gonna move more into the good. So in terms of the good, I really love the whole core memory and going through the past and everything. I really liked that. I liked how it was giving back us those callbacks to the original movies. For example, the Avengers movie from back in 2012. That was really cool seeing all those callbacks and everything. As well, liked in particular the scene with Howard Stark and Tony Stark. I thought that brought great emotion and everything. That wasn't a callback or anything, but I mean, still, that was actually a really well thought out scene, and I feel like that also kind of sended off Tony as to be a better character in the sorry, in this movie. So yeah, and then another thing, it brought emotion. It brought a lot of emotion. You were just like when you were watching this, you were probably if you're a real fan from or not a real fan, sorry, but like a fan from like a long time. You grew up with these movies. Like for example, I grew up with these movies. I remember watching all these movies in the theaters. Um, it was just interesting to see like basically you're culminating like for example with my own self. I grew up with these movies. I was a young kid when they came out. Now I'm more more so a lot older, so it was interesting to kind of see like a send off to your childhood essentially, and it brought all that emotion, which I actually really enjoyed. But even if you weren't a child and you're watching this, maybe you started watching it when you're 20, I don't know, and now you're like third in your 30s, I don't know. I mean, it's still brought on something. It showed time passing. It showed your life going, and it was really interesting to see maybe, well, at least with me, like a core memory for yourself, kind of just being sent off. So that was interesting. I thought they had an actually interesting plot. I thought the whole time travel thing. I know a lot of people disagree with it, and a lot of people are like, "That's overcomplicated." But once you watch it a few times, then it makes a lot more sense of what's going on and how they're doing it. I remember on my first few watches, I was just like, "Yeah, I'm not understanding this thing too well." But after a while, I was just like, "Yeah, this is making a lot more sense, and I understand why, and I understand everything." and it's really interesting to kind of see the whole thing. And I really like the whole kind of time travel kind of plot. So that was pretty cool. The next thing, of course, easily is the end battle. I mean, the end battle is just awesome. If you took out the end battle from this movie would be, I'm not even gonna lie, it would be like a 6 out of 10. It would be a terrible movie. But with that end battle, it makes it so much better. It's a great end battle. It's a great combination of all these movies. It's a great way to tie it in as well. It tied in all of our characters together. We saw basically everybody who was in the MCU up to this moment, with I think a few exceptions. For example, I think Black Widow was obviously not there. Plus the characters that are now we're now seeing, for example, like Yelena, we didn't see obviously Moon Knight and all them, like the new characters that are being introduced. That's what makes me hype for eventually when we get like Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, is the amount of characters that will be in that, because there's gonna be even more. So that's pretty cool. Another thing I liked as well was the character development behind some of the characters. Specifically, I really liked the character development around Steve Rogers and Tony Stark. But I feel like Tony Stark had a lot more character development compared to Steve Rogers. But I mean, Steve Rogers was already a good character and a very solid character and well written. But this just improved his character into showing just a little bit more of like how he's courageous and everything. So I thought that was really cool. And then with Tony Stark, it was like he just in he just evolved into more of like a hero per se. I mean, he was already a hero, but I mean, this just made him look even better as a hero. So that was one thing I actually really enjoyed. But yeah, and that's pretty much for the good. In terms of my rating, I mean, slash conclusion, I think it's a very solid movie. I think it's good. It holds up. It's solid conclusion. Easily, this movie is probably an 8.5 out of 10. Um, it's not, in my opinion, it's not better than Infinity War. Infinity War is way better, but I mean, it's still a solid movie and an easy 8.5 out of 10. So yeah, that's pretty much it though. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.